It gives me great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce the set-piece event of this evening and our dinner. It comes against a background of turmoil in terms of the political and military situation in Afghanistan at the moment. Of course, we had the Rolling Stone article 2 weeks ago, I think it was, the resignation and the recall of General McChrystal, the appointment of General Petraeus since that time. As Henry said, initially we had Christopher Hitchens lined up as one of our debaters. Unfortunately, he is unable to make it this evening. And one thing that's always been clear about Christopher is he's always turning up for the events he agrees to talk at. And so it must be said he's been extremely helpful with this conference and also helpful in terms of finding us a replacement. So our best wishes go to Christopher. Every cloud has a silver lining, and as Henry said, Michael O'Hanlon has come up from Washington this evening at very short notice. I believe his 5-year-old daughter is being looked after outside the main hall. It's really very much appreciated, and I think we still have very much a heavyweight debate between two key figures from the commentariat, if you like. Michael is from the Brookings Institute. He is known, or was known, as a proponent, I think that's fair to say, of the Iraq War, but also a critic of the way it was managed, very importantly, and made his name in both those regards. In recent years, he has spoken in support of the Obama administration's decision to scale up the number of troops, and also in support of a shift towards the new counterinsurgency strategy in Afghanistan. And among his recent books, I think most importantly, there's a massive list of them, but the most important is Toughing It Out in Afghanistan, which he's recently co-written. And I think that explains, if you like, the background to his involvement in tonight's debate. The other speaker tonight, who we've had lined up for the last month or so and can make it this evening, is Ambassador Peter Galbraith, who's a world-renowned author, academic, diplomat, policy advisor with a long and distinguished career which goes from East Timor right through to Croatia. He was involved, as was indeed Christopher Hitchens, in highlighting the treatment of the Kurds in Saddam Hussein's Iraq. And he's recently authored a number of books, again, like Michael, including, I think most famously, The End of Iraq, which he published in 2006. Most relevant to tonight's debate, in 2009, Ambassador Galbraith served as the UN's Deputy Special Representative for Afghanistan, where he was associated with uncovering the fraud which characterized the Afghan presidential elections that year. And he has been critical of many aspects of the running of the Afghanistan war. So tonight's debate is entitled, as you can see, Can Afghanistan Be Won? And without further ado, and without any more from me, I will hand over to Ambassador Galbraith to initially respond to that.
The answer is no. Winning is defined in Afghanistan as defeating the insurgency. The strategy that it's clear, and I don't think Michael's going to disagree with me on these points, that we cannot win simply by killing as many of the insurgents as possible. We have to follow a counterinsurgency strategy. The basis of a counterinsurgency strategy is that you secure an area and then provide governance that can win the loyalty of the population, so that the moderate or the less committed insurgents come over to your side, and in an environment of security and reasonable governance, the population will then rat out the hardliners. Now, every expert on counterinsurgency, including David Petraeus, who wrote the book on it, would say that in order for that counterinsurgency strategy to work, you have to have a credible local partner. And in Afghanistan, there is no credible local partner. The government of Afghanistan, we know about what the government of Afghanistan is under Hamid Karzai. It's been in office for 8 years. It has a track record. It has a track record of ineffectiveness. It's not for nothing that Hamid Karzai is known as the mayor of Kabul, because he controls neither the north, which is run by the Tajiks and the Hazaras and the Uzbeks, nor the south, where the countryside and much of Kandahar, the second largest city, is actually controlled by the Taliban. He is corrupt. Afghanistan ranks as the second most corrupt country in the world, according to Transparency International, just ahead of Somalia, which has no government at all. So that's the record. And as was it Dr. Johnson said of second marriages being the triumph of hope over experience, based on that record, is there some reason to think that the next 5 years are going to be better? What's going to be different about the next 5 years? Well, there's something very significantly different, which is to say that he's now illegitimate because he stole his last election. It was undoubtedly massively fraudulent. There are about 6 million votes reported. That's quite different from votes cast. At least 1 million, possibly as many as 1.5 million of Karzai's reported votes were not cast by Afghans. They were, nor incidentally were they manufactured in the sense of being marked. Now that's a lot of work, marking 1 million phony ballots. They were simply reported, a large number of them from polling places that actually never existed. So we have, as our partner, somebody who is with a record of who's run the second most corrupt country in the world, demonstrably ineffective, illegitimate, and frankly, is a bit weird. And you just review the events of April 1st. On April 1st, having denied that his election was fraudulent, he admitted that it was massively fraudulent, and then said, Afghans didn't do it, the UN did it, Peter Galbraith did it. Now that simply revived a controversy that, I made something of an issue of this, but after a while you go back to Vermont and you get forgotten. Well, this gave me a whole new lease on life, another 15 minutes. But what was his interest in doing that? Because to be honest, there was nobody in the world who believed that I stole the election for Hamid Karzai. I mean, everybody understood two things. First, that it was really beyond my capability to produce non-existent polling results from polling centers. And secondly, actually I'm not that fond of the guy that I'd steal an election for him. So the next day, April 2nd, he apologizes, called up Secretary Clinton to apologize. And the third day, he meets with a group of Afghan parliamentarians and says, hey, if you keep pressuring me to hold honest parliamentary elections, I might go join the Taliban. Now, what kind of comment is that when you have 100,000 American troops in an increasingly unpopular war to announce that you might join the enemy? And then on April 4th, he repeated the very accusations to which he had apologized to Secretary Clinton, saying that not only was the UN responsible for the fraud, but the US was responsible for the fraud. So let me just say a word about how this operates on the local level in the Pashtun areas. Incidentally, I think it's understood that the insurgency in Afghanistan is entirely a Pashtun movement. It is therefore operates in the half of the country that's Pashtun. On the local level, in America, we tend to think that if you're in office in your power and if you're out of office, you're out of power. But in Afghanistan, the connection between holding office and exercising power is purely coincidental.